We all want to find love, and with so many people looking for love, why is it still so hard to find? And I'm not talking about love the way you love your favorite movie or your favorite ice cream. I'm talking about real love, true love, that ride or die love that we all search for, that love that is undying, of two souls being intertwined, of two human psyches and two human personalities who know each other so well inside out, that the love is unconditional. And it's a deep love which is undying, and it's very hard to break. That relationship is valuable, and we all seek that. And so in this video, we're going to start off by explaining, using depth psychology, the romantic side of love, and then we'll progress in the later stage of the video to the love that you experience in other relationships, like friendships or family relationships. So with that said, let's dive right in. So whatever your history, whether you've been in a long-term relationship, whether you're single and you've been dating and you've had maybe multiple short-term relationships, or maybe medium-term relationships of 3 months or a year or something, and you're still in this position where you just can't find love. Or maybe the relationship that you have right now is strong and it's good and it's comfortable, but the love, that crazy fantasy love that you've always been looking for, it's not quite what you have. And so you're wondering, does that even exist? What is love? You know, you're wondering why, the relationship isn't what you thought it would be. And so what I want to do in this video is explain to you first the psychology behind love and attraction. Starting with romantic love, let's look at the two minds of a woman and a man who are in a romantic relationship. And this is what's going to be typical in the most cases. However, you can also look at these examples, and if there's other types of relationships or whatever, then you can also apply the same principles here as well. And that's what we'll progress onto in the later video as well. With friendships, family relationships, even business relationships, it's possible to have love too. So, so what we have here is this psyche, which is the mind of a woman. And the psyche of the mind, or the mind of a man and a woman have the same structure. So what we're looking at here, this circle represents the whole mind. In depth psychology, we call it the self. We won't go into that now, but the self has two parts. It's got the conscious mind and the unconscious. And you can see the circle is broken up by this squiggly line. And that is the conscious mind, that's the unconscious. The conscious mind is simply the mind that you are in right now. You're watching this video, you're in your conscious mind. And your unconscious is everything else. The most simple thing you need to understand about the conscious and the unconscious is that the conscious mind is the mind that you are in when you're awake. It's where all your thoughts, sensations, feelings, and intuitions happen. And your unconscious mind is simply everything else that's still a part of your mind, but simply not in your conscious mind. So one of the easiest examples that I like to use is memories. So right now you're watching this video, in your conscious mind is not every memory of your life. You're not thinking about what you did yesterday, or what you did a week ago, or how your birthday was last year, or any of those old memories. All of them exist somewhere else when you're not thinking about them, when you're not remembering them, and that place that they exist is your unconscious. And then sometimes you might recall a memory consciously, you might try and think back, and that memory is coming from your unconscious mind into your conscious mind. And also sometimes you may not consciously do it. Maybe you're walking down the street and you see something that reminds you of your old high school, and the memory of your old high school rises up. You're not bringing that memory up consciously, but some kind of outside stimulus brings that memory up. Where does it come from? It comes from the unconscious mind. So the next part of the mind is the ego. That is simply you inside your mind. So right now you're watching this video and you're in your conscious mind, and you inside your mind, represented by the dot, that is what we call in depth psychology the ego. So let's move on to explaining how love can actually be created and how you actually find love. So now we know the diagram is of a man and a woman's psyche, their mind, the unconscious, and the conscious. And now we have these two other things here, which is the green positive and the red negative, and the green positive and the red negative. So what happens in a romantic relationship, and we always call this in kind of slang terms, the honeymoon phase, is when you first meet, you are getting to know each other, and you're kind of putting on a mask. You're kind of showing the other person the best of you, the best qualities that you think you have. you're kind of showing them part of your personality. And then as you get to know them, maybe in the first month, you've met a couple of times and you've talked and, you've told them some things about yourself, but you're not really going to come straight out the gate with all the worst qualities and the worst parts of you and whatever you perceive, all the negative things that are associated to you. And so we have this period where we're just pretty much only showing our positive qualities. And in depth psychology, we call that what's called the persona. So the persona is a mask. It is essentially, when we grow up in the world, what happens is we are taught to associate positive qualities to our personality as we grow up. So for example, when you're young, you might tell a lie, or you might steal. Maybe you're 5 years old and you take your mum's toy, or you take your mum's wallet and try and find some money to buy some candy you want or something like that, and you do something bad, then your parents might smack you or give you a timeout, and they might say, never be dishonest, never steal, never whatever, these X quality. And what happens is you learn from very young age to associate positive qualities to you and negative qualities to cut them off from yourself, to separate them from your personality and to push them away. So even as a toddler, you still, you lie, cheat, and steal, and you're just unconscious. You don't know that it's bad, and you're taught that it's bad. However, it still exists as a part of your personality, even though you cut it off. You just kind of choose to not act on it, or you choose to push it away, to not look at it. However, it does still exist. All those negative parts of your personality do still exist. But we consciously associate ourselves, so we consciously connect the ego to positive qualities. We want to be honest and smart and hardworking, whatever, all these positive qualities, which whatever the society that you're brought up into, whatever they deem are positive qualities are what you're going to associate to yourself. The negative qualities are the ones we're going to cut off from consciousness, and they become what's called the shadow. So these are the qualities which we don't want to be a part of ourselves. And so what happens in the relationship when you first get into a relationship is that you're going to show the other person all the positive qualities which are part of you, part of your personality. And as you go through the relationship, you might let your walls down or kind of become more relaxed and comfortable with this person, thinking that they're not going to reject you once you show them maybe some of your more real qualities, some of your more negative qualities, or the qualities that you perceive are negative, not necessarily are negative, just what you think is bad about you. And so as we begin the relationship, we kind of wear down this persona a little bit. It's normally quite extreme. We might be really careful with our clothes and the way we smell and our teeth and making sure that we're perfect for the other person. And then you're hanging out at their place for a couple of weeks, and you fart and you take a dump, and they smell your morning breath, and they get to know the kind of a little bit more about what it's really like to be with you. And these are just human qualities, but we still think they're negative. They're still perceived as bad. Bad breath, dirtiness, uncleanliness, anything like this. These are just basic ones. So that's what's happening in the beginning of the relationship. You have this mask, and it's slowly kind of been breaking down. And that's helpful. That's actually a good situation because you're building trust. Now, what happens is that can only go so far. And where it stops, let's just say the relationship goes on past that 3-month period and you're at a year in. And where that stops is where the person themselves is totally unconscious of the negative qualities that exist as part of their personality. And this is where we get into a big problem in relationships, in all types of relationships, which is projection. So what happens is the negative qualities, which we split off from ourselves, are projected and experienced outside. So let me break that down a little bit more. So the negative qualities of our personality, for example, lying, cheating, stealing, these are just a couple of perceived negative qualities, at least in most of Western society and a lot of the rest of the world. These are negative qualities, and so they're split off from consciousness, where someone who has this particular development in their mind of a persona where, let's just say, for example, they're honest, and the opposite of honest is dishonest. And so let's just say what's going to happen is, as they're looking at the world and themselves, they're going to see themselves as an honest person, and there will be dishonest people out there. And it's much clearer to see when you go a bit further into like more harsher negative qualities. For example, like criminal, we see that we're a good person and there are bad people out there, right? And that's a simple shadow projection. So the quality of bad or evil is unconscious in us, and so we project it outside and we experience it outside. Now, what happens is in relationships is a bit more complex, because there's another part of the mind which actually comes into play here. However, I want to keep this just super simple and explain the real reason you can't find love. And so the real reason you can't find love is that you're holding back these negative qualities from your partner. We see that at the beginning of the relationship, in that 3-month period, we're only trying to show our positive qualities. And so there's part of the relationship which is letting some of those positive qualities and letting some of the performance and the persona, the act, stop and be a bit more real. And then there's also showing the negative, showing the bad parts. And these are just the more human parts. So, for example, maybe in this particular relationship, the girl is so afraid to tell the man that her family are involved in like illegal dealings. And she thinks that if he finds out, he will hate her and he won't want to be with her. And the guy is, he's so worried that she's going to find out that he has no money. Or, whatever they think is terrible, or whatever some kind of like secret, some kind of quality which is associated to them that, is difficult to share, to reveal. And, these qualities are not trivial. It maybe he's infertile and she wants a family. And now that's a huge thing. That's not some small thing. That would destroy the relationship, at least in his perception. And so these are things that separate the couple and separate people from the truth. And this is the biggest reason why people can't find real love, is because real love requires you to love another person for all the worst things that they are. And that's the only way that real love can exist. And so the only way that you can actually love somebody for their negative qualities is to recognize and see those same negative qualities in yourself, and to remove these projections. Maybe she thinks that he's useless and lazy because he's broke and he's infertile, right? That's pretty rough. And maybe he thinks that, she's a terrible partner because she has this background of illegal dealings. Whatever it is, whatever they could be. When you dissolve these projections, what that requires is this person to see this negative in themselves consciously. So to bring this negative quality into their conscious mind, and for this person to bring the negative that they see outside them into their conscious mind. So it would be for her to what's called introject this quality of being infertile into herself, whatever she thinks the meaning of that is, like useless, unacceptable for a partner, whatever it is. There's meaning bound up in the kind of objective reality, which is unique to her. When she sees, when one person sees an infertile guy, they might just not care, or they might think it's actually a good thing. And when she sees it, she might see some horrible thing which is not in her because she's fertile and whatever. It's a subjective negative quality. So in order for them to love each other, they have to dissolve these projections. And when the projections get dissolved, that's when real love becomes possible. Because what happens is most people fail at love because they give up. They give up on the other person. So, things will go bad. There might be some mistake. There might be some negative thing that comes up in the relationship which you perceive is a obstacle that can't be navigated, which there's no pathway through the relationship. But what happens is, why don't you have that same problem with yourself? So when you come up against some negative quality in yourself, maybe you make a mistake and you get some kind of disease. Maybe you have some kind of traumatic injury. Maybe you have some history of drugs or rehabilitation. Maybe you have some kind of thing in your history that maybe you slept around. Maybe you slept with a whole bunch of partners and you think that your boyfriend, your partner, whatever it is, your girlfriend, will find that as a negative trait, and you have to harbor this secret. And if they find out, it would ruin the relationship. Maybe there is some kind of, there's substance abuse, addictions, financial problems that can be in relationships. Maybe there's family problems. So maybe, the mom hates you, or your dad hates her, whatever it is. There can be all these different negative qualities which are hidden. And what happens is, it's like this. This is now we get into the later part of the video, where this is you, and you think that you're standing on a foundation, a solid foundation, and your relationship is solid, but you never looked at the foundation. And then when you look down, so when you come across this problem in the relationship, you realize, oh shit, I'm not standing on solid ground. I'm standing on, tissue paper. I'm floating in the air, and you're going to have to fall through it. You're going to fall through it. And when you fall through it, now you're on solid ground. Now you're on more solid ground because you're closer to the truth. So after these projections are dissolved, now she knows the truth about him. He knows the truth about her. Now what can happen, and what most of the time does happen, especially in the modern world, because we have dating apps and all this stuff on the internet where it's so much more accessible easy to find a new partner. So you're less likely to stick it out and to invest in one person. And what normally happens is they see these negative qualities, they fall through this, they hit that barrier, they hit that problem in the relationship, they go past that honeymoon phase, all this stuff comes out eventually, and then they fall through the mirage that they were standing on, and they hit the truth of their individual personalities, right? That she is a human being with positive and negative qualities, and a positive and negative history, right? All these, her entire life has, positive and negative. And I say positive and negative because it's just perceived. One person might look at her and see as bad. Another person might see as not, they don't care because they see that quality in themselves, or even they think it's good. And so one situation is that they break apart and they give up on each other. And the other situation is that they accept the inferiorities in the other person and love that person even for their inferiorities and their negative qualities. And this is how you find real love. This is real love, because now you have two people who accept the worst in each other. And that can sound bad, but it's actually the most beautiful thing, because it's seeing the truth. It's seeing the soul for what it truly is. Every single person has the duality of positive and negative within them, good and evil within them, every single person. And the only way to actually find love is to expect that and know that you're going to come across that in the other person. It's just inevitable. It's going to happen. Like you'll find the perfect person. There will be something. There will be things about them that you don't like. There will be inferiorities. There will be negative qualities that are part of their personality. And the same is with you. And so because the same is with you, the only way for you to be loved by somebody else is, first of all, to become conscious of all the positive and negative parts of your personality, because then you actually love yourself for the negative, not only the positive. And you're able to love somebody else for the negative and the positive in them too. That's why, there's that cliche line of love yourself before you love anyone else, because without being conscious of these negative qualities, you're not going to be able to accept another person and love them for the negative qualities in them that do exist. And there are so many reasons why we stay in relationships, even though we're standing on something far from the truth. There might be, one partner might be extremely attractive and doesn't want to jeopardize a relationship. Maybe there's financial, incentives there. Maybe they really like the family. Maybe it's just the fact that they've been together for so long, they don't want to, break apart and lose something. When, they might be like in this mirage where they're living out a fantasy. What that means is they might just be pretending that this isn't the situation, that this isn't the truth. And so the relationship is still just fragile and not meaningless, but it's fragile and it's not meaningful. And that's where you have those long relationships that aren't particularly meaningful to each individual, because the true love, the real love, isn't actually there. It doesn't actually exist. So in that example, there's no acceptance and no true love. But I just want to say something else, that there's acceptance and then there's love. So the key here is that when you see the qualities that are both positive and negative in you, then you can see them in the other person. But let's just take the example where they see the negative qualities in the other person and then they stop loving them, or they end the relationship, or they can't love or accept those negative qualities in the other person. Why is it that when you come across negative and inferior qualities in yourself, you don't give up on yourself straight away? Like some people, get to the point where they do, but that's a completely different problem of the mind, which I won't get into in this video. But why is it that you can still love yourself despite your worst qualities? Why is it that I can know that I'm filthy and a human being, and I'm unclean, and I lie, and I have all these inferior qualities, and I'm lazy, and I'm gluttonous, and all this negative stuff, and why can I still love myself? And why can I be also conscious of the positive qualities? I'm loyal, I'm honest, as all these positive qualities, hardworking, whatever, all these positive qualities too. You have to have connection consciously to both of them in your own mind. The positive qualities are easy to have connection to because everybody wants to think good of themselves. It's hard to accept the negative qualities. And the fact that you still love yourself for the negative qualities, that's the same real love where you never give up on yourself. That's the love that you want to find in somebody else. And the only way you're going to find that is by seeking out the negative in somebody else, actually trying to understand them and learn their personality. And when you find it, don't give up on them. There's quite complex explanations for why you're attracted to certain people because of the structure of your mind and the way it's formed. However, I won't get into that in this video. But what I do want to say is that when you are in these relationships, all you have to do is and you want it to work. If both parties actually want this thing to work, then you have to look at the other person as an equal in terms of their humanity, the human aspect of their soul, and them as a person. So there's two parts of the personality and a human being. There's the corporeal part, which is your body. You take shits, you eat food, you piss, you sweat, you have farts, you make saliva, stuff comes out of your eyes. Like it's all this human, the animal part of you. And then there's also the divine part of you, which is the spirit, the psyche, and the soul. And those are kind of the same words those words mean the same thing. We're talking about the psyche here, which is your mind and your soul. All the positive and negative parts of you and your unconscious. Where your dreams come from, where your nightmares come from, your fantasies, your daydreams, imagination, all these different objects and events that are happening inside your mind. That's what we're talking about when we're referring to the mind, the spirit, and the soul. And so when you're in your relationships and in the future and you're having new relationships, the key here is to not rush things, but seek out the truth about not only the other person, but yourself. What are you afraid to tell them about you? What are you afraid to find out about them? What questions do you want to ask, but at the same time, you're so afraid to ask? What answers do you want to give, but at the same time, you're so afraid to give? Those are the hurdles that you have to actually walk through. That's the fire you have to walk through in order to find the holy grail on the other side, the love that you really want on the other side. The treasure on the other side it's behind the dragon. You got to go through that. It can be a confronting thing to tell somebody, to open up your soul to somebody else and just hope that they don't reject you. And so yeah, it's scary, but it's extremely rewarding if you can make it through. And I'm not saying to never give up on a relationship either. Sometimes relationships are just not the right time or the right people or whatever it is. Sometimes they're just not the right choice to not give up. But I think for the most part, a lot of the time we do give up on somebody, too easily nowadays, because we can just jump back on Tinder or some dating app or jump back on Instagram or go to a party, and it's just so easy to meet someone new and get all the new validation, go through that fun honeymoon phase, and not actually have any real human connection, like basically none. It's not real love that you're experiencing there. It's fun, but it's not real love. And you can ask any couple who's been through maybe like an 80-year relationship or something. There are big ups and downs. You're going to have fights. You're going to have problems. You're going to have massive clashes. There's going to be mistakes. If you actually make it through a proper relationship, that's how it is. That's how any relationship is. And the key here is to just love somebody else for, you know, all the worse that they are. Just think about the lowest point in your life where everything was going bad. Maybe you were being a massive asshole to everybody else. Maybe like you just, you know, you're surprised that anyone even still wanted to talk to you because you're at this low point. The person who was there for you and still loved you, even when you were mean to them, even when you betrayed them, even when you were disloyal to them and you cursed them, and still they were right there by your side. That's love. That's real love. And the only way to have that is to be that for somebody else. And so that's, you know, it's a difficult thing to find, and even more difficult to maintain and actually be conscious enough to not give up on somebody else, especially in today's world, like I said, when it's so easy to give up on somebody else. But just constantly seek out the truth, both in yourself and in other people. Keep exploring your inner world like you are doing right now in this video. You know, understanding your own mind and the mind of other people a little bit more. Hopefully you've been able to do that after this video. And just lastly, I want to touch on the relationships you have with other people which aren't romantic. And it's the same thing, right? We just accept other people for their worst qualities because we can see them, those same qualities in ourselves. And that, you know, people think that unconditional love and true love is where, you know, you don't turn your back on somebody. But true love is where you do turn your back on somebody and they still love you, because you have to expect those things to happen. You know, those negative qualities are part of the human personality. I'm not saying go out and love everybody. You know, you may only want to have a very select few people who you do have that kind of relationship with, maybe only one. But having it with nobody is, I think it's a sad thing. I think it's a missed opportunity. And so many people just actually don't have it with anybody. And that's because of this, they encounter this problem. They just give up on other people too soon. And what's actually happening is they're not giving up on this other person, they're giving up on themselves. Especially if the other person actually wanted to give it a go and was there, ready to go, ready to run through the hellfire with you. You know, and you know, we see it online and in different movies and stuff. This is called like the ride or die love. And yeah, I think I have it with a couple people so far, maybe. I'm still young, so it's a long way to go to see how everything goes. But yeah, hopefully this video gave you some value and you enjoyed it and it was useful to you. If you did like this video, I'm posting new videos every single day, so click subscribe. And if you want to take the next step in learning about your mind and psyche and finding out the different parts of it and how your mind affects every single decision you make, how your decisions affect your behavior, how your behavior affects your destiny. If you want to find out about all this stuff, I've put together a really simple blueprint called the Mind Mastery Blueprint. It's completely free and it takes less than 5 minutes to read. I'll put the link in the pinned comments and in the description of this video. You can get it, you can read it completely for free in 5 minutes, and I think it'll be really valuable to you and you'll really enjoy it. So if you want to grab that, the link's in the pinned comments and descriptions. Otherwise, thanks for watching and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.